Welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 242, Lovin' It. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host. I'm here this morning at 818 Studios with my producer.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey. As always, I want to welcome you to a brand new week. And here is a brand new month. It is February. Hard to believe. We're already 1 month into 2023, and I'm still writing 2023 on all my checks. I mean, 22 on all my checks. That's not true. Although I will say,
you haven't written checks in 10 years.
No, but I do, when I grade student projects, I'll put the date in the file name. Yeah. And so I'm just now getting over the muscle memory of 2022, like just that way that feels on the number pad.
Totally get it.
And so the 2-3, I have to get my ring finger involved, and it's cracking my knuckles.
You and your micro decisions.
I know.
Well, you know what's funny? This is the first year I've not done that. The very first year of my life. For some reason, I was so ready for 2023, I almost wrote it in December.
And isn't it funny how quickly the old year looks old?
Totally.
I'm flipping through Netflix, and I see something done in 2022. I'm like, oh, that's old. Like
that's
a comedy.
So last year.
Yeah, a comedy stand-up special, like 22. Yeah. We're 4 weeks in. And I'm like, oh, that's old. That's old business.
It's old.
But once again, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have a lot of options out there in the podcast space, and I just want you to know that we appreciate you spending part of your day with us.
Well, speaking of that, we're always seeking to improve the show, and we are always grateful for your feedback. But what I know, Dave, is we're providing a real professional listening experience that's largely, due to your technical acumen. But this last weekend, I went to the podcast conference in Orlando, and that was a lot of fun. So we'll probably be bringing some changes to the show. And I also, I tend to believe that God is my best SEO, that people find us that need to find us. But, we're ending our financial campaign this month, and we have already had wonderful sponsorship roll in. And friends, that the reason for that is we're trying to reach more people with this empowering message. So it just takes finances to do that. And what's so great is many of you have been recommending this to your friends and colleagues and neighbors and listening multiple times to the shows. All those are good things. Subscribing, all those are good things. And sometimes I'm a little shy about asking you to do that, but please do it. Please subscribe, because the more people that subscribe and listen and share, the more people are sent to us. It's a weird way the system is wired to work now. So I was a little slow to embrace it because I'm like, I don't want to play the game. But
the algorithms.
The algorithm game.
Yeah.
But I also know that when you're ready, you find it. So it's like in the 12 steps, the idea is attraction rather than promotion. And the 12 steps are the most successful nonprofit in the world. They have more money, more... so there's something to it that if this is feeding you, though, I'll ask you to help. And, like in the 12 steps, as the basket comes around, you put something in because you want it to be there when you need it. So anyway, thanks for your support. A lot of you have already given, and a couple given very big. And all those gifts are appreciated and honored. And again, used in proper ways. Keeping us on the air. I'm meeting with the Google advertising team this week. There's several things we're moving forward on. I just got a reach out from Orlando Magazine. So wow. There's things that are really cooking. And friends, I'm also working with some new groups. I just started last month with working with the ABC All-Stars basketball team, and I'm doing some motivational work with these kids, and they're on it, and I love it. I love it. And that's takes us really into today's show. So, Dave, give us today's show title.
Today's show title for episode 242 is Lovin' It.
Loving it.
Loving it. Not loving, loving it.
Yeah, you got to say loving it.
Lovin'.
Loving. L-U-V. We should have spelled it that way.
Love, L-U-V apostrophe in it.
Lovin'.
I'm doing it. I'm changing it right now.
Well, my grandmother used to say, she was so funny, Granny Anderson used to say, I love you. Well, I love you, she would say.
Some Tyler Perry sounding stuff.
I know, it was. Sounds just like Tyler Perry, right? She'd go, oh, come here, honey. You know I love you. And then she would just start laughing.
No.
I love you.
That's sweet.
Oh, she was a special soul. My God, the cook she was. She learned to cook over open fire because, see, she was half Cherokee, right? So when she was little, they cooked over open fire. And even when I was growing up, her washing machine was one of those old tub machines that would sit out on the front porch, and she'd sit out on the front porch and do her laundry till, when I was 10 years old, she was still doing laundry. Like, that's just 40 years ago. She said the new machines didn't get things clean, you know? So anyway, I love you.
That's the kind of time you have in your life when you're not like checking social media, and taking your kids to violin lessons. You have that kind of time.
Exactly. Well, she was a very hard worker, though. She worked at the cotton mill. She would say 28 years and 3 months and never late a day. And then she also ran a restaurant in the morning. So she worked very, very hard. I don't know how she did what she did. Seems to run in my family.
Yeah. I would say that work ethic, and you're passing it on to your son as well.
Oh, I tell you what was so fun for me recently. Last month, when my son came to work with me at the church, he's had so much going on the weekends. He hasn't been there in a few weeks, and he's had a lot of travel and his violin playing and everything. But he was there recently, and for the first time, he was on the soundboard, and it was so cool to have my son doing my sound. That was awesome. It was a real great family time, and he really loved it, and he gave great feedback, and it was just great to see him as a professional and me just loving him as a human and as a man rather than my son. It was just so cool to watch him work with others and how respectful he was. And I was just loving it.
He's one of the good ones, and I saw that in him on, working with the slides and the camera him working on the soundboard. That's a no-brainer at all.
Oh, it's a no-brainer. Yeah. And he's got such good ears. The way he listens. So anyway, So today we're glad to have you along the ride with us, friends. I can't believe it is already February, as we were saying. And I love February. It's my birthday month. So it's always a happy month. And I think let's have a whole birthday month instead of just one day.
Yeah, let's do it. And it's the month of love, and
Right. Well, and that's the idea about this title, Lovin' It. And all last year, you probably remember me saying that a driving question was, is this bringing me peace? Right. I would, all last year, and really the last couple, it was like, okay, why am I doing things that are not bringing me peace? Right. So that was really a driving question. Well, this year is, I got to be loving it. I got to be loving it. If I'm not loving it, I am not doing it.
You're not doing it.
No. Life is too short, or rather, life is too long to be miserable. Life is too long to be miserable. And I know as I say that, people might say, well, what about your job? Loving it. I'm loving everything I'm doing. I'm doing a variety of things. Loving my job at Unity North Tampa, loving my work with clients. Daniel Namot and I are creating an event for the end of March. So we'll be saying more about that on the show, because I know Daniel is not only a loved guest, but incredible performer, human being. So he's going to be with me in Orlando and in Tampa, loving that. And that was how I started the year is, okay, who would I love to work with this year? Who would I love to work with? And just going for it. And so Daniel is coming all the way from LA. We're talking about multiple events in 2023. We were trying to get everything in one weekend, and he finally said, it's kind of a lot in one weekend. And I started laughing. He goes, I can come twice. maybe even 3 times. And I go, oh,
They're not one-use planes.
oh, right. So that was pretty fun. So he and I are, going to be working together, and we're loving it.
That's great. Yeah,
Get
Daniel's
him back
awesome.
on the show as well.
100%.
Yeah, we need to do an interview while he's in town.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
So, friends, I mean, that's the question: is, are you loving it? Are you loving it? This is certainly a personal aside, but it has to do with the topic that for a while I was driving a car that was kind of out of necessity for what I was going around speaking. And I had this huge truck, and the truck was really for the barn and the horses and I don't have a horse anymore, and I'm not at the barn. And so when I bought that little Hyundai, it was a grocery getter. It was a commuter car. It was a, let's drive to Tampa 3 days a week car. And it served my purpose really, really well. But it got to the point where I didn't love it. And every time I got in it, I felt like I was getting in something substandard, even though I'd taken great care of it. I mean, I was offered top dollar for it because it looked brand new. I wash it top to bottom and detailed it every week. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of time I spent on that car. And, it's a little Hyundai, but I believe in valuing what you have. And I know that when you value what you have, it helps you get the next best thing for yourself. As you value what you have, what you're bringing into your life will be good, next. So I was really into that, and I was teaching that to my son and having him help me and things like that. And finally one day I was like, okay, time for something new. And remember, I talked on the show a little bit that I was looking for a classic. And remember, Dave, you were sharing about your VW Bug convertible story.
Until I got in one.
Until you got in one and was like, I really don't.
Hard pass.
Yeah, it's hard enough. And so I really went on this journey of what do I really want? What would I really love? And it's hard because I love so many cars. Like, I love Jeeps. I love sports cars. I love to drive. But it was like, what do I really need? And I was thinking about the back and forth between church, helping friends out with stuff, getting things for my house. And I finally decided I needed a truck. Well, then I had to drive all those. I drove a Chevy. I drove a full size. I drove a mid-size. I drove, a tiny truck. I drove all the different kinds. I drove new. I drove used. I drove Dodge. I drove Ford, Chevy, all the different. And it's funny because I had 2 Toyotas and I didn't really want another Toyota. And then there was this great off-road one at this dealership. And I was like, I'm going to drive that just for fun. And I got in it and went, oh my gosh, this is my truck.
This is the
one. It's not this one, because that one was kind of had too many miles, and I had this big scoop on it on the top for off-road. But I was like, I love this truck. It fits me. It's, of course, Toyota. It's made for small Asian people, which is my size. I'm like a small.
Right.
Remember, I'm 1% Asian. So, right. I got in that truck. I was like, these are my people. So then I had to be on the search of, the right and perfect one. So I was able to find, through the help of somebody very dear to me, I was able to find an incredible truck, and I love it. Love, love, love it. It's not brand new, 2021, but I love it. It was leased for 1 year. So I love it. And it is off-road. You know me, I love adventure. I love it. It's 4-wheel drive. I love it. It's a sunroof. I love it. So it had been a while since I loved what I had driven, and it makes such a difference. I feel proud getting in it. It's strange. Even though my other car was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. It was great little car. Dealership was happy to get it because it was a 2013, still under 100,000 miles. They're probably going to make $4 or $5 grand on it. Fine. Go right ahead.
Well,
but I love it.
Yeah. And something in the motorcycle community is what they say is when you walk away, I can't remember if we've said this on the show here, but when you're walking away from your car or your motorcycle and you don't look back, then you bought the wrong one.
Right.
You bought the wrong one. And so I know for me and getting a Harley and all that stuff, that's absolutely true. It's like
Oh, yeah.
every time I get off my bike, I look back and I'm like, wow, yep.
That's a killer bike.
That's so cool.
Right. And it's really okay if nobody else likes it, right?
That's
Because
right.
you like it.
100%.
You love it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's the other hard part. I'd love a bike. Don't mention that, Dave. That's a whole other topic.
Yep.
But maybe one day.
We're having breakfast tomorrow, and if the weather holds up, I'm going to be on my bike.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a beautiful ride. Yeah, it'd be a beautiful
absolutely.
ride. For sure, for sure. Well, so friends, think about that. Are you loving life? Are you loving what, you're doing? Are you loving what you're driving? Are you loving what you're wearing? I remember several years ago, I went through a pretty big change, and it was like, I don't like any clothes in my entire closet. There's stuff that doesn't fit. There's stuff I just wear on Sundays, and it's always hard. It's always been hard for me in my work because there's always these expectations to, I'll say, quote unquote, look like a minister, and I tend to be a little more casual. So I've had to find my own style within that because I do know that as I'm speaking, I have to look professional, but I'd be happy in ripped jeans and barefoot. Really, 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 really.
Yeah.
I would be very happy with that. So, but that's the job. So I've had to find my own way into loving that. I had to wiggle around in that a little bit. Like just the other day, I pulled something out and I go, I look like an old lady in that. And I'm not old yet. I'm not old yet. That's got to go. So if I'm not loving it, it's time for a change. And friends, that doesn't mean that I'm, some bulldozer like saying, oh, I don't love this, forget you, or this relationship is not easy every second of the day. No, things worth doing have their challenges for sure. But it's like, if you're not feeling good in general about your job, about your life choices, those things are going to be bringing you down. And as those things bring you down, you're going to turn into a stress factory, and you're going to start alienating the very people that are important to you. You're not going to be very good at a job you hate. And I can't tell you the number of people that have said to me, I talked myself right out of that job.
Mm-hmm.
I kept saying, I hate this job. I hate this job. And the universe said, fine, you don't have to do it anymore. So, there's things are a process. Things are definitely a process. And, like buying this vehicle, well, I had to do a couple things. I had to see what my car was worth. I had to make sure my car was going to be seen as valuable. So I had to do a little research. I, did all the things where you go on Carvana and CarMax and see what somebody will give you for it. And did I want to sell it? So there was work involved. There is work involved. I'm not saying, woo, if you don't love it, screw it. It's not something like that. But it's like, it's like the old question of what brings me joy. Like if you can't look at your life and say, I love it, something needs to change.
If you don't walk away and look back,
Yeah.
And you don't say, wow, I love that.
Yeah. Well,
it's the same principle.
It is. And, when I left CCU, it was such a big deal, but it was getting to the point that I wasn't loving it. And I said, I don't want to feel like this in ministry. It wasn't them. I was just ready for a change. Really, all is well there. But then even when I took Unity North Tampa, I was surprised as the next person that I was walking into a church, and I just had somebody this couple Sundays ago say, I don't know how we got you. I just thank God every day that you're here. I don't know why you would want to come to this church. I said, well, there's good people here and God guided me here. So, we've already grown by like 300%. So, that's fun. It's fun to see the pews filling. It's fun to see offering plates that are overflowing. That's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to know that we're reaching people all around the world from Lutz, Florida. Who's ever even heard of that? That's great. People on the podcast or, on the channel, rather, on Experience of the Soul podcast channel are listening to my Sunday morning talk. I love that. So it's like wherever you are, friends, you can create something, So to me, that's fun. I'm loving that. So that's a great driving question for me this year. And, we talked about last last month that, January is, the threshold, right, of the new year. So your decisions you're making are really important. So as you're moving into the year, we're already in February, how are those spiritual intentions? Remember, we talked about that, not resolutions, because those are empty and they never last. But what are the spiritual intentions about what do you want to do? Who do you want to be this year? And having a single driving question is super helpful. And mine this year is, am I loving it? Right? If I'm not loving it, it's probably not mine to do. I'm not going to throw anybody away, but I'm going to be clear in what is mine to do. I'll give you another example. For a long time, because I left my church position from CC Orlando and immediately went into doing teaching online and counseling, and those were all on video. And I was really getting fatigued from all the video. And it wasn't until this maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Yeah, it was before the end of 2022. I think it was like maybe October, November. I just started saying, I'm not looking forward to doing this, and I love these people. So what is it? And I had to do a little soul searching about why is this not working for me? And it was all the video. And then something happened with one of my clients and they needed an emergency session. And I said, I cannot do a video session today. I was actually driving. I said, I'm going to be on the road, but I definitely want to make time to talk to you. Something very big was going on for them, a big life transition. They said, oh, a call is perfect. I can't do video either. So about that time, I was also making some changes on my website. And anyway, that session, I was present. I wasn't distracted with all the video. They weren't looking at how was their hair and their makeup. People often do that are not used to cameras. As soon as they get on with a session, they start messing with their hair. They're thinking about how they look rather than what do they need from this session. And I noticed I was more present. And I consider myself to be quite present during sessions. And so I said to this person at the end, I was able to help her. And I said, are you open to doing our next session on a call? She said, oh, that's better for me. And I said, well, I feel like I helped you more today. And I was more present to your process. And I said, I have to be honest. I have my limits as a human. And I think the video is distracting. I can make it work if that's what you need, if you need a visual connection, but I believe I'm better by phone. And so I had that conversation with each client, and there's only one that I still see on video, and we still do occasional phone sessions, and we talk about it each time, phone or video. And if I'm doing really deep work, well, I have to do that one-on-one anyway.
Yeah.
So all that said, then on my website, it says, all sessions are now by phone. I do have offices in Tampa and Orlando, but all sessions are by phone, for now. When that changes, I'll let you know. And you know what? I'm a better coach. I'm a better counselor. I'm a better listener. Sometimes I need to walk around. I need to move with my style. I need to, and I've said to my clients, if you hear steps, I'm walking back and forth, either outside or in the house, because that's how I can listen better. So it's very unique to me. Like nobody ever, I'm sure there's some counselor out there going, what? That's fine. What I know is my counseling practice has gone up. I am getting referrals, and I am better when I can use my hands and move when I talk. So I really listened to what I needed to create that. And it was a risk, right? Because I could have had clients say, no, I don't want to do that. So, and it's my work and I want to support people. So I may have needed to make a compromise in some cases. So the one person that needs it, well, that's not a problem, but I can't do 4 video counseling sessions in a row. It's too much. I'm too tired. It's not the kind of work. It's not like answering emails. It's emotional and it requires so much presence to stay on video. So, friends, that's a personal example. I'm giving it so you can see how me listening to what I love actually helped my clients. They weren't missing anything. And the one that it wouldn't help, well, then if it's only one a week, well, that's fine. I can do that. That's fine. That's totally reasonable.
Well, yeah, and I've had something very similar to this in my teaching world.
Yeah.
You know, at Full Sail, when we grade projects, historically, it was just all by text, right? It's just typey, and so you get like this massive, 500 word response. And I'm not the quickest typer, and I completely don't like doing a bunch of written feedback, because I would find myself spending more time trying to describe the way I was giving something feedback, like, especially if it was tough, like, hey, it really isn't all that great, and if I just type that out, this isn't all that great, then there's so much room for interpretation that I would spend an extra 100 words just qualifying that. So then I thought, okay, what can I do that serves me,
yes,
that will ultimately serve the student better?
Exactly.
And so I started doing video feedback, where I turned on the camera and I had their project.
I love that you did the opposite. You went,
absolutely. I did the opposite, because I realized if I just typed out, this isn't that great, then interpret. But if I go, this isn't that great, then they can start feeling my heart on it. And so I started doing video feedback. It was so much more rewarding for me as an instructor, because I felt like I was actively instructing instead of just typing Amazon reviews or whatever.
Exactly.
And the student, so ultimately, it wasn't selfish, but I did it for me first.
Right.
But the student response was overwhelming, and it's been 10 years now. And in 10 years worth of student feedback surveys, I have yet to have one student come back and say, I'm not a fan of the video response. In fact,
I bet
it's the opposite. They gush month after month after month, saying how valuable this feedback was, because I realized when I gave that feedback using a mechanism which served me, then I can feel better about it. I'm more effective, and then they are better served.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Beautiful. Yes. And that is the idea. It's like, I remember, Dave, there's also a statement you use that I've adopted, I've taken on, when you say, there's a check in my spirit, that phrase.
Yep.
And so that's kind of what I'm saying. If you're not loving it, that's a check in your spirit where something in you's going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
But then you just move forward, because sometimes it feels easier just to go, whatever, this is how I've always done it. I don't want to make waves. I'll just keep.
This is how, years and years of faculty did it before me. Not that I created video feedback, but nobody in the entire music department was doing it. And I'm like, what? Let's just do this.
With today's technology, why not?
Yeah.
And I could instantly feel the difference of the connection. And that's happened for me as well. I don't know why. I think because when I don't have video with sessions anyway, I'm listening more to their inflection and less to them, how they look.
Right.
Right. And we're all taken in by video. Right. So, and interestingly, one of my clients, when I said, I was explaining the video thing, because I had not seen her for a while and she was coming back. I said, well, I have to tell you two things. One is my rates went up. I said, I will honor the old rate, and now I'm doing phone sessions. And she said, well, number one, no, I am paying the new rate. Number two, I'm thrilled with phone. Then I don't have to get my makeup on. So, it was so funny, right?
Yeah, but for a counseling session, to be able to, that's a direct, and I know, like on Zoom, you are connected, but there's a little bit of disconnect. But when you're on the phone with somebody, it's an intimate connection. Much more personal. It is. Yes, it is.
And what I've noticed is, because there's a little bit of space, they don't feel like they're on. They're able to go a little bit deeper in their process, because they feel like both connected, but also a little separation at the same time.
There's a little bit of safety.
There's a little bit more safety, and so they'll go a little bit deeper. Well, that's the whole work, right? So if we're just doing this to look good and for me to like their process, I'm not really helping anybody.
In the effort to create a more personal connection, you actually created a barrier. Like it reminds me, as soon as you started talking, I was like, well, there's a reason, like, therapists have couches. So people lay down and they look up and they don't make eye contact. And the counselor is kind of right, like out of the eye line, out of the peripheral, so that the person feels somewhat safe. And that's the first thing that I got in my mind when you said you went to phone only, is it removes you and your personality, if for lack of a better word, removes you from their vision. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And again, it's coming from the question of, am I loving it? If I'm not loving it, something needs to change, because, there's this trust I have with my soul process now, because I've been listening to this inner voice for so long, and so many of our listeners are the same. Our listeners are usually not brand new to the spiritual journey. They've been on this journey for a while. They have some kind of spiritual practice. They pray regularly or meditate or journal or all of the above. They, attend different things so they can have different spiritual experiences. So our listeners are going to be connecting with that inner voice already. And it's such a simple question that I think it's easy to miss. Am I loving it? And you may have a different driving question, but try this one on. If you don't have one, try this one on and see how this feels for you this year. And what a great time to start it, the month of love. Mm-hmm. I think ultimately this comes down to believing we have a right to love everything. Depending on how we grow up, depending on how we have experienced the world thus far, some of us don't feel worthy. And we approach worthiness from our divine nature, that because God is, we are, and our divine nature is in fact who we are, whose we are, right? So this is a very important distinction in our work. So it doesn't matter how much money you have or what car you drive or how old you are or even where you were born or what your birth order is. What matters is that you are God's, therefore I am worthy. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. So we thank you for listening today, dear friends. We hope you are loving life, and say to yourself, loving it. And if you can't say that, just see if anything needs to shift, and know you're supported by the universe, because the universe is made of the fabric of love. Literally, it is the underlying force and energy of the universe. And again, we'll go into this more next week right here on the Authentic Spiritual Journey. As always, thank you for your support. And if you need support along the journey, please go to my website, CynthiaAliceAnderson.com, for information about coaching. I do have a couple of spots left. I have a very specific goal in mind with the number of clients. I know how many I can support well, and I have room for 2 more in my schedule and would love to have you as a client. So blessings on the journey, dear friend. And again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2023, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.